Hello and welcome to the Coaching for Self-Belief podcast with Pete and Andy. Pete, how can we ask questions and what sorts of questions can we ask to help people to become more mindful?
Well, this was the question from last week that we wanted to talk about this week, and it's open questions is the answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very simple, open questions. And we were talking about this earlier. That's a big part of our online child-centered coaching course. And it's just practicing using those open questions. What, where, when, how much. And that in doing that, people have to go into the moment in order to answer the question. So that ticks one of the boxes for mindfulness straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. Because those questions are open, and the only place that a person can go is into awareness in the moment, and non-judgmentally, which is part of what mindfulness is, as we know.
Yeah, and the non-judgmental part is partly down to how the coach is in their being around the question. What if the coach has the energy of curiosity and non-judgmental observation themselves, then that carries across to the student.
And that comes from following the student's agenda. So listening to what they say, asking an open question which picks up on what they're talking about, which helps them to explore even further what they've noticed.
Yeah. In a way, for us coaches, it's to be very comfortable with not knowing.
Yes. Yeah.
We don't always have to know the answers, and if you ask someone, what are you noticing right now? You don't know the answer to that, but that's what makes it interesting.
Absolutely. And just asking somebody, what are you noticing now, is good enough. And the other day I was thinking about that, because if you say to somebody, what are you aware of? What are you noticing? They might say, oh, I'm noticing my shoulder, and then want to do something about it. But actually, what are you noticing? What are you aware of is good enough as it is. And I think you said that last week when you said awareness is curative, and that's all you've got to do.
It really can be magic. I mean, we've each got so many examples over the years of just asking that open question, what do you notice? And then people have an insight straight away, or they go into a certain amount of time where they're simply observing in the moment, which is the mindfulness.
Yeah.
And out of that, there's some sort of resolution. Technically, perhaps something improves, maybe without them noticing exactly how it's done.
Yeah.
So there's real magic in simply asking, what do you notice?
And I think that when you go back to, when we go back to young children learning, they notice things and that's all they do. And they carry on with what they're doing. But I think because this is all developed now, when we notice things, we want to try and perhaps change it, make it different, but just notice what you notice and then again, carry on what you're doing.
That's where the non-judgment comes in, because the more we develop as children and individuals, the more we have opinions and beliefs, that we, when we notice something, those beliefs come to the fore. So then it becomes a practice to let go of those beliefs and go back to the raw experience of simply observing without adding belief to it.
And that's the other part of the coaching equation, if you like, is to help players to let go of all of this and just feel, notice, see whatever it is that's happening in the moment.
Yeah.
And work with that.
And of course, in doing that, you're conveying trust.
Yeah.
To your student, trust that their onboard computer can do some amazing things, and that if you have this mindful approach to being in the moment as you're doing something, or observing as you're doing something, the onboard computer can do some marvelous learning.
And we've just joined up awareness, choice, and trust quite nicely, because the question
going back to John
Yeah.
Kabbat-Zinn, he talks about the 7 attitudes of mindfulness, and trust is one of them for him.
Absolutely, yeah. And then just crossing back to the inner game, Pete, we've just married up awareness, choice, and trust quite nicely. So asking questions that help people to become more mindful, open questions, is offering a person choice. And then the awareness part is noticing what you notice. And the trust part is being able to let go of what we know perhaps we should do or shouldn't do, but just stay with what's actually happening in the moment.
Yeah, just raw noticing.
More noticing, pure.
Yeah, without any analysis or interpretation.
Yeah.
And that has a power of its own. So the other attitudes of mindfulness, we've got non-judgment is one, patience is another, beginner's mind he talks about as another attitude of mindfulness. So that's sort of going back to this idea of raw experience, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that helps the non-judgment. If you have beginner's mind, you come to each moment fresh, without the luggage and the baggage of your beliefs about what you might expect to happen, or
one way I've found of getting into that is to visualize or remember how young children learn. Just visualize a child learning, a young child.
Beginner's mind.
That's a beginner's mind.
When you're a child, you're a beginner.
No judgment, just simply doing and experiencing, and then doing again.
Yeah. So then he talks about the attitude of non-striving. And that's connected with all of this as well, isn't it? It's the over-trying comes from beliefs and expectations and all of that kind of stuff. And with this mindfulness practice, the non-striving sort of comes along with it.
Absolutely.
The over-trying comes with over-analysis, overthinking. So as you let your thoughts go and you become mindful in the moment, the non-striving as an attitude comes with it.
That's right.
And then he talks about acceptance. So, whatever it is you're noticing, again, intimately connected with non-judgment, isn't it? Accepting whatever it is. So maybe I've hit the tennis ball in the net, and to be able to accept that and maybe notice something about that I haven't noticed before, that's a mindfulness approach to it without the judgment.
What's quite interesting about the learning is the more you can accept your experience, because it's hard for somebody to accept a ball going in the net, but the more you can accept that without any judgment, then the more you'll get feedback about what you did with your body to put it in the net, because you'll bring it back to yourself and what happened in that moment when you hit the ball.
So then the learning happens.
The more, it's like a scale, almost a sliding scale, but the more judgment or energy that's on the judgment of the result, then the less you're going to be aware of what you did to make that result happen. So it's practice. Keep practicing being non-judgmental, accepting things as they are, but staying aware.
Yeah.
Good.
The last, we've gone through all of them now. There's 7 attitudes that John Kabbat-Zinn talks about, and the last attitude he talks about is letting go. And of course we've talked about this before on the podcast when we were with Tim Galway and he was running the golf workshop in England. That was the phrase that I remember the most that he used.
Me too.
He was working with a ex-pro golfer, wasn't he? And constantly reminding him to, let go of the analysis, let go of the thinking. And together with that, there's the trust your body, trust your onboard computer. It's implicit in that statement.
Absolutely. I think somebody's trying to call us, Pete. So I might have to mindfully answer that, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's all of the attitudes of mindfulness there, and
Yeah.
just to bring it back around to how can we use the open questions to achieve that state of mindfulness. And so it's what, where, when, how much, and just as an example of that, to use the mindfulness breathing space, which was developed by Danny Penman and Mark Williams from Oxford University. And it's a very popular exercise where you just take 3 minutes to first of all observe what you're thinking, what feelings you have, what emotions are running, and then you do the next minute where you slip into observing your breathing, and then the final minute you expand that breathing out in a way that works for you. But if we look at just the first minute of that 3-minute exercise, the breathing space, what they're suggesting is that the first thing you ask is, what thoughts are going through your mind? There's the open question. So,
And not to do anything with them. Yeah.
Yeah, just to allow them. And, as a coach, then you can help people to be non-judgmental in as they're observing their thoughts. So just, using the attitudes of mindfulness that we came up with, be patient, allow those thoughts, accept those thoughts, let them go. That kind of language after you've asked the open question can help someone to stay in a mindful state. So then the next question would be, what feelings are there right now? What feelings are you
What do you feel?
experiencing?
Yeah. What do you feel in your body? Yeah.
It's saying, is there any sense of discomfort? Is there any sense of comfort? So you can begin to funnel down with your questioning. And again, you don't know the answer to those questions, so it demands that somebody's observing in the moment to answer those questions. But at the same time, as a coach, you can bring direction in and direct someone in a particular area. But, with feelings, what are you feeling? With your relaxation in your shoulders. What are you feeling as you notice the little muscles around your eyes?
Yeah.
And it's so simple to get somebody into the moment with that open questioning. And so then the last question they'd ask in that 1 minute would be, what emotions, body sensations are there?
It's also separating out the mind and the body a little bit. When you ask somebody, what are you noticing? The person's got to go inside a little bit. And I think quite often the mind and body for most people are joined. But when you start to do mindfulness, you start to separate the mind and the body a little bit more. And that makes the difference, because then you can observe what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. But when they're together, which is generally day-to-day life, if you haven't done much mindfulness, you're together. So we want to try and stretch out the mind and the body a little bit with these exercises.
Almost how Tim Galway talks about with the stop tool, that if you're a general on the battlefield, he talks about that, doesn't he? That if you step back up a hillside or something, you can observe the whole thing.
Yeah. And you're stepping away from all this unconscious momentum that's going on and doing.
And then you can see more what's happening, and then you can decide how to proceed.
And we're going off track a little bit, but I was just thinking about Federer. And I just, whenever I look at him and I look into his eyes, and I know that sounds a bit weird, but you can see that he's connected to his body as well as he knows what's going on outside. There's a very high level of awareness going on. And you see that look in his eyes in a lot of people that have done meditation and mindfulness. Is a look of knowing what they're feeling
as well.
Yeah, and he's practiced a lot of mindfulness, but not sure if Federer has, and whether it's perhaps kind of a natural default thing. But
and there are times with Djokovic where he'll be in the battlefield and he'll get angry, but then very quickly he'll be able to reset using that stepping back, and that's when you see the self-awareness come right back in. So using mindfulness in the heat of battle.
Yeah, and it's good for the people that aren't naturally born that way, like Federer, knowing that you can also train it and practice it to get to a good level.
Oh, and well, there's a question as well that maybe we're all naturally born that way, and we very quickly learn judgment.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah, that's the other side of it, isn't it? Yeah,
and then the beliefs sit on top of that, and then we have things that get in the way, and that's the interference, going back to the inner game.
Yeah, good.
Very good. So open questions, very simple, and just noticing how they connect someone straight away into mindfulness. So remember that when you're out on court. And of course, you don't have to do it as a coach for somebody else. You can self-coach, and you can ask open questions of yourself any moment of the day, and it's going to change your experience of the day. Just, take a moment out, and what am I noticing right now? What emotions am I noticing? What thoughts are going through my head?
And it's going to help. It's going to help your coaching relationship, isn't it? The more the coach is aware of themselves and others, then the more that's going to help the person they're working with. Yeah, great. It's mindfulness for everybody.
There you go. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody, and see you next time.